Truly said and well said. Let's hope there is a better tomorrow. In America, meanwhile, the US President Joe Biden delivered a 19-minute long farewell speech. And he relayed a long message to Americans. Biden hinted at an oligarchy taking form in the country without taking clear names.
Today, an oligarchy is taking shape in America of extreme wealth, power, and influence that literally threatens our entire democracy, our basic rights and freedoms, and a fair shot for everyone to get ahead. And this is a dangerous that's a dangerous concentration of power in the hands of a very few ultra-wealthy people. And the dangerous consequences if their abuse of power is left unchecked. Today, an oligarchy is taking shape in America of extreme wealth, power, and influence that literally threatens our entire democracy, our basic rights and freedoms, and a fair shot for everyone to get ahead.
Joe Biden also called for a constitutional amendment to end immunity for sitting presidents after the Supreme Court granted Trump sweeping protections last year from criminal liability over his role in trying to undermine his 2020 defeat. But it was the reference to the Israel-Hamas ceasefire deal that has grabbed attention of many. Joe Biden touted the Gaza ceasefire and hostage deal in his fifth and final Oval Office address, saying that the Israel-Hamas agreement was developed and negotiated upon by his administration, and it will largely be implemented by the incoming administration.
After 8 months of nonstop negotiation, my administration, a ceasefire and a hostage deal has been reached by Israel and Hamas, the elements of which I laid out in great detail in May of this year. This plan was developed and negotiated by my team and will be largely implemented by the incoming administration. That's why I told my team to keep the incoming administration fully informed, because that's how it should be, working together as Americans.
On the other hand, Donald Trump, in a social media post, asserted that he was the moving force behind the deal. He said the ceasefire agreement could have only happened as a result of his historic victory in November. He added that his incoming Mideast envoy, Steve Witkoff, who was participating in talks in Doha, will continue to work closely with Israel and other allies to make sure that Gaza doesn't become a terrorist safe haven again. Susan Tehrani of WION now joins us live from New York. Susan, thanks for joining us on the show. We see a war of words ensuing between the president-elect and the current president. What more can you get us on that?
So according to recent reports, and this is coming from the Biden White House, Brett McGurk, which is Biden's Middle East envoy, was doing the legwork, and Steve Witkoff, as you mentioned, which will be the incoming president's envoy to the Middle East, was making sure that Hamas and Israel, to an extent, understand that they want this ceasefire to go through before he takes office. Now, the president-elect had time and again during the campaign trail and just recently said that all hell would break loose if the hostages aren't released before he takes office. And it's hard to imagine that it wasn't his threats that, first of all, got Hamas thinking and moving, and of course, Israel as well. We've said this time and again, and I still believe that that's the case. Because of the relationship that Biden had with Netanyahu, it was very hard to imagine that Prime Minister Netanyahu would give any sort of victory to Joe Biden when it came to some sort of settlement or a ceasefire. Nonetheless, as he's going out of the office and President-elect Donald Trump is coming in, which is very reminiscent, you may know, of when Jimmy Carter was leaving office, a Democrat, and hostages, American hostages, were in Iran at the American embassy in Iran after the Islamic Revolution. Ayatollah Khomeini waited until Carter was out of office and Reagan was sworn in for Iran to release those hostages. This really seems like that Reagan moment if the ceasefire goes through. And, you know, the analogy is really not lost.
Thank you, Susan, for joining us with those details.
you.